It really wasn't that long ago that Todd Gurley was playing under the Friday night lights just up the road in Tarboro. Now he's getting ready to play in the biggest game of his life at Super Bowl 53 in Atlanta. I caught up with Gurley's high school coach, Jeff Craddock, to talk about Gurley's early years as a Tarboro Viking. You remember what it was like the first time you met Todd Gurley?
Yeah, I can remember it very well. I've told the story many times, of course. I'm always glad to tell it again. A middle school coach named Ryan Wells, who now lives in West Virginia, and he said, Coach, there's a kid down there that just looks a little bit different than everybody else. Seems a little faster, seems, I said, okay, those are always good to have. I said, give me the name. And he said, Todd Gurley. I said, Gurley? I said, that's a name, I've been here for a while. I've never heard of anybody, with that last name.
If it wasn't for that encounter between Craddock and Wells, Gurley started Tarboro, might have been a little shaky.
To be a part of Tarboro football, the expectations are there, and they don't get changed much. You either do what you need to do or you're no longer part of it. So, we do our summer, and we were working out. So it was like the second week in August, so we were rolling pretty good now. And a coach comes up to me and says, there's a parent over here that wants to talk with you. And so I go bopping over there. She's a friendly lady. Hello, Coach Craddock, how are you doing? I'm like, so good. I've got my son here. He wants to come out and play football. And I was like, we've kind of been doing this thing for a couple weeks now. Where's he been? What's he been doing? He's like, well, he's been in Maryland visiting his father. And I was like, well, okay. And she's like, well, go ahead and introduce yourself. And he's like, my name's Todd Gurley. And as soon as I heard that name, it was like, boom. I was like, you know what? Yeah, we'll work with your son. We'll get him caught up to speed.
So let's go back to the sophomore year. You guys end up winning a state championship.
Praise the Lord.
But you didn't have Todd starting as a sophomore, did you, on varsity?
I did not. It shows you how smart of a coach I am. I was keeping his legs fresh. I knew he was going to have a long career ahead of him.
But again, at Tarboro, everyone has to earn their role, and the seniors ahead of Gurley had earned their playing time.
I was like, listen, I don't want to pull up a kid, even though he was as good as Todd. I wasn't really going to uproot my seniors because they deserved it, and so I just made the decision, listen, let's just leave Todd down there.
Gurley would eventually see some varsity action as a sophomore. However, it was not at running back.
I did pull him up for the playoffs. I did put him on the kickoff team. He was number 45, and he actually made a couple tackles in the state championship game, but I don't think he ever carried the football for us at all. Trust me, I knew going into the next year that he was going to be the man.
When Gurley finally made it to varsity, he made the most of those 2 years, rushing for over 4,000 yards and 64 touchdowns en route to 2 state championships in a Tarboro Vikings uniform. That earned him a spot on Craddock's Wall of Fame with an autographed picture.
I said, listen now, you're signing this picture, so this would be the first thing he actually officially signed. Just take a look at that signature. It's a little rough, you know what I mean? So I tell him, I said, boys, you're going up on the Craddock Wall of Fame. Now, you want it to look good, so they come in. It's funny to watch them. They come in and they get to practicing on paper, And so I was showing Todd, that's me signing his name.
Okay.
So I put number 1 over there. So here he goes. Those are some of his early attempts. So then we tried. I said, okay, bud, let's try initials. So that was me doing a TG.
I was going to say, I like that. That looks pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think he uses that more today. So, this was his early attempts on doing the TG.
Gurley has mastered the autograph by now, but sometimes he just likes to come back home to Eastern North Carolina.
I said, you ready to get out of the bright lights of Los Angeles yet? He's, man, Coach, he said, I'm telling you, I can't wait to come home. He said, some of these guys, already booked flights and are gone. And he said, he goes, I'm ready to come home. And I said, well, home's ready to have you. And so he flew in the next day. The first place he come was right to the practice field. Just standing out there, him and his buddies, just watching us practice football, hanging out with the guys. And a lot of people, this was under the radar at Walmart. He took care of like $6,000 or $7,000 of layaway gifts for people he just didn't even know. Like they just drew names out, and if you had toys on layaway for $500, okay, you were free. The next ticket, well, okay, it was $1,000. They're paid off. I mean, that's what he does, and it's just it's refreshing, and it makes you even more proud to say, hey, man, Todd Gurley, he's a Tarboro Viking, and he's just a special young man.
Todd Gurley, a Tarboro Viking. Brian Bailey, you got to see him play on Touchdown Friday. What was it like seeing number 1 in a Tarboro Viking uniform?
I remember